Let me take you back, dear reader, to the day Henry decided I was the chosen one. I still don't fully understand his selection criteria. Picture this: a kennel filled with some of the finest canines, tall, lean, the kind who chase after sticks without even checking for splinters. And then there was me. Frank. Short, muscular, with a nose that sounds like a freight train coming in for a landing. But when I saw Henry standing there, his jacket buttoned wrong and a coffee stain the size of a tennis ball on his tie, I thought, this guy's clueless, but hey, maybe he's my kind of clueless. He took me home that day. Now, home is an interesting word because at first, Brooklyn in the spring was less homey and more chilly. Imagine trying to settle into your new digs when the walls feel like ice and the heater sounds like it's about to take off on a solo flight. I mean, sure, he had a bed for me. Henry's thoughtful that way. But let's just say it was more starter mattress than luxury suite. I'd curl up feeling every single bump in the stuffing, dreaming of something warmer, something more permanent. Still, I got used to it because that's what we dogs do. I'd curl up at night and watch him fiddle with his ancient coffee machine, muttering under his breath. We had a routine. He'd come back from his insurance gig every day, shoes squeaking with that oddly comforting smell of paper and ink. He'd flop down next to me and sigh, a kind of exasperated but happy sound, and we'd both just sit there, two bachelors waiting for summer. And then one day, finally, the warmth came. I remember it like it was yesterday. Henry had the day off, a rare treat, and so did I, as usual. But that day, something magical happened. Sunlight. And not the kind of sunlight that peeks through clouds in April as if it's still deciding if it wants to commit. No, this was real, honest-to-goodness, bake-you-to-perfection sunshine. Henry opened the door to the tiny patch of backyard we called our own, a 5x5 strip of grass that wasn't so much green as it was stubbornly surviving. I trotted out, paws hitting the warm earth, and let out a satisfied grunt. Finally, the world was at a temperature that matched my soul, toasty. Henry joined me, looking like he had one too many iced coffees already. He plopped down next to me, leaning back against the house wall, and grinned. "It's finally warm, Frank," he said, like I didn't notice. I mean, come on. I was already sprawled out, belly up, the sun soaking into me like a warm bath. And for the first time, I felt it, a kind of warmth that wasn't just about temperature. It was like I'd truly arrived somewhere. This was home. We spent hours out there. Henry read a book, and I supervised. He doesn't get a lot done without me, honestly. Every so often, he'd toss me a treat, and I'd give him the side-eye, pretending not to care until the last possible second. I think he lives for that moment of suspense. As the sun moved, I shifted with it, soaking in every inch of warmth. It was a quiet day, the kind that didn't need anything fancy to be perfect. Just a guy and his Bulldog, finally understanding that sometimes the best moments come when you're doing absolutely nothing. Later that afternoon, Henry decided to make us a snack. Now here's the thing about Henry's cooking. He's ambitious. He'll try to whip up a fancy dish convinced he's some kind of Michelin chef, but really, he's just Henry, the guy who once tried to make pasta without boiling water first. I watched him go into the kitchen, banging around pots and pans like he was auditioning for a one-man band. The result? A peanut butter and banana sandwich. He gave me a bit of banana, and let me tell you, it was like nothing I'd ever tasted. Sweet, creamy, and let's face it, a little mushy, which made it even better. I wagged my tail, giving him the old, "I guess that'll do" look. But inside, I was doing backflips. The simple things, right? As the sun began to dip, we went back outside, taking in the last golden rays. Henry leaned back, sighed, and said, "You know, Frank, it's just you and me here. But I think that's enough." It was as close to a heart-to-heart as a guy and his dog get. I rolled over, nestling my head in his lap, and in that moment I felt like I'd found the warmth I'd been looking for all along. It wasn't just the sun, it was Henry. This single human with his mismatched socks, crooked tie, and terrible sandwich-making skills. He was home, and so was I. As dusk fell, Henry decided we needed a treat. Out came a bowl of ice cream, vanilla, my favorite. He placed it on the ground and I licked it up, feeling the cold mix with the warmth of the day. It was the perfect ending to a perfect day. He sat next to me, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to deep blue, both of us savoring the quiet. He chuckled to himself, murmuring, "Who would have thought, huh, Frank? Just you, me, and a patch of sky." I gave him a look, one that said, "Hey, as long as the treats keep coming, I'm not complaining." In that twilight, it hit me how much had changed. From a cold kennel to a warm home, from a stranger to my best friend. We didn't need much, just some sun, a backyard, and each other. That night, I curled up in my bed, which suddenly felt softer, warmer, like it had molded itself around me. I listened to Henry puttering around, brushing his teeth, flipping off the lights. He came over, patting my head before he headed to bed, whispering, "Good night, Frank." And I thought, "Good night, Henry. We did all right, didn't we?" As I drifted off, I felt this strange, comforting sensation, a memory of the sun, of Henry's laughter, and the warmth of our tiny backyard. I'd had my first real day of summer, my first taste of home, and I knew there'd be many more to come. The next morning, Henry's alarm blared, a sound that would make even the deadbolt upright. I gave him a disdainful look, but he just grumbled and shut it off, stumbling around like a bear half awake. I stretched out luxuriously, basking in the leftover warmth from yesterday, still feeling a cozy buzz. But today was different. It was Monday, which meant Henry had to go back to that mystical place called work. Now, I don't know much about this so-called job of his. He leaves every weekday and comes back smelling like the elevator buttons he's probably touched 1,000 times. And honestly, I can't see the appeal. He spends all day tapping away on a keyboard and pretending he's interested in policy reviews, whatever those are, while I get to hang out, sun myself, and occasionally chew on a plush toy. Between us, I think I've got the better gig. As Henry got ready, I followed him around the apartment, our usual morning ritual. When he tried to put on his tie, I plopped onto his shoes, giving him my best, "Why don't you stay here and keep me company" look. He sighed, chuckling as he scooped me up and gave me a quick scratch behind the ears. "Gotta go, Frank," he said, sounding a little sorry. I guess he knew what he'd be missing. With one last pat, he stepped out, leaving me to guard the homestead.